never thought I'd be the kind of person who feared love. But after what happened with Maya, I don't think I can ever trust anyone again. We met in the most ordinary way, through a mutual friend at a coffee shop. She had this quiet charm, an almost ethereal presence, like she didn't quite belong in this world. Her eyes were dark, deep pools that always seemed to hold something unsaid. At first, I thought it was just mystery, an allure that made her different from anyone I'd ever known. But looking back, I think I mistook silence for secrets. Our relationship moved fast, too fast. Within weeks, we were inseparable. She had a way of making me feel like the only person in the world, like she was studying me, memorizing every little thing about me. I should have found it sweet. Instead, it felt unnerving. The first red flag came in the form of her dreams. Maya suffered from terrible nightmares. At least, that's what she called them. She'd wake up gasping for air, her nails digging into my skin. I tried to comfort her, but each time, she'd whisper something strange before drifting back to sleep. "You shouldn't be here. They don't like it. They're watching us. If I tell you, they'll take me away." At first I assumed it was just sleep talking, but the way she'd say it, eyes still shut, voice eerily calm, sent chills down my spine. I started noticing other things too, small, unsettling details. She never had any family photos in her apartment. She avoided talking about her childhood. And sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, I'd catch her staring at me, almost like she was waiting for something to happen. Then one night, everything changed. We were at my apartment, watching a movie. She had fallen asleep on my chest, breathing slow and steady. I was just about to doze off when her hand suddenly clutched my wrist, hard. "Maya?" I whispered, but she didn't respond. Her grip tightened. I tried to pull away, but she wouldn't let go. And then, in a voice that wasn't quite hers, she whispered something that made my blood turn to ice. "I remember how you died." My heart nearly stopped. I sat up, shaking her. "Maya, wake up." Her eyes fluttered open, wide and unfocused. She looked at me, but it wasn't her. Her pupils were blown out, her expression blank. For a split second I swore her face wasn't human. Then just like that, she blinked and she was back to normal. She yawned and smiled. Did I say something weird again? I wanted to laugh it off. I wanted to pretend it was nothing. But I couldn't. Because at that moment, I realized something chilling. I had never told Maya about my near-death experience as a child. No one knew. No one except me. And yet somehow, she did. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with Maya. At first, I convinced myself it was just sleep talking. Maybe she had read something about me somewhere. Overheard a conversation. I needed a rational explanation. But the more I tried to reason it away, the worse things got. Maya started behaving differently. She wasn't just staring at me anymore. She was observing me, watching the way I moved, the way I spoke, like she was studying every little detail of my existence. Sometimes, I'd catch her murmuring to herself, as if she was having a conversation with someone I couldn't see. I tried asking her about it, but she'd always laugh it off. "You think I'm weird now, don't you?" she said one evening, tilting her head with an eerie little smile. "No, Maya, that night, what you said in your sleep." Her expression darkened instantly. "I don't remember, but you said..." I said I don't remember. Her voice was sharper than before, almost aggressive. I didn't push it. But that night, I woke up to the feeling of being watched. My apartment was dark, except for the faint glow of the streetlights outside. I turned my head slightly, and my blood ran cold. Maya was sitting upright on the bed, completely still, her back to me. Her breathing was slow and unnatural, like she was struggling to control it. "Maya?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. No response. I reached out to touch her shoulder, and she turned her head without moving her body. I swear to God, in the dim light, her eyes looked wrong. Too large, too black, too empty. Then, as if nothing happened, she blinked, her face returning to normal. "You talk in your sleep too, you know?" I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, I decided I needed a break. Something about Maya was getting under my skin. She was beautiful, intelligent, and for the most part normal. But there was something off. That evening, I told her I needed some time alone. She didn't argue. She just smiled, too wide. "I understand." I left her at my apartment and went for a long walk, trying to clear my head. But when I returned, my stomach dropped. The door was unlocked. I was sure I had locked it. My hands trembled as I pushed it open. The apartment was dark, eerily quiet. Everything looked the same, except for one thing. There was a single photo on my coffee table, a Polaroid. I picked it up, my heart pounding. The image was blurry, distorted, but I could see a person standing in the middle of the frame. Mr. I was asleep in my bed, and standing right behind me was Maya. Her eyes, completely black, mouth slightly open, as if whispering something. My hands went cold. My brain screamed at me to run, but before I could move, my phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "You shouldn't have left me alone." At that moment, I knew this wasn't love. It was possession. I wanted to run. I should have, but fear does strange things to the mind. It traps you, roots you to the spot, like a helpless animal caught in headlights. My fingers trembled as I held the Polaroid, my breath uneven. I scanned the dark corners of my apartment, expecting to see Maya standing there, waiting. But she wasn't. The apartment was empty, completely silent. I took slow steps toward my bedroom, my pulse hammering against my ribs. The door was slightly ajar, the dim glow of the street lamp casting long shadows inside. I hesitated, then pushed it open. The bed was made. Everything was exactly as I had left it. But on the pillow, right where my head would have been, was another Polaroid. This time, the image was clearer. It was me, sleeping, and someone, no, something, was hovering just inches from my face. It had Maya's shape, but its eyes were hollow. Its mouth was unnaturally wide, like it had been stretched far beyond human limits. The longer I stared at the photo, the more I felt something watching me. That's when my phone buzzed again. A new message. "I told you not to leave me alone." A sharp knock echoed from the front door. I jumped, my breath hitching in my throat. The knocking was slow, rhythmic, deliberate. I wanted to ignore it, but something inside me, some terrible, morbid curiosity, forced me to move. I approached the door, every nerve in my body screaming at me to stop. Another knock, then a whisper from the other side. "Open the door, love," Maya's voice. But it was wrong. It was layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. Some higher, some lower, all of them distorted. I backed away, shaking my head. "Maya, stop this. Just go home." Silence, then scratching. Not knocking anymore. Not words, just nails dragging against the wood, slow and steady, like something was trying to dig its way in. I stumbled backward, my chest tightening with pure, raw terror. Then my phone buzzed again. I looked down at the screen. A new photo. I hesitated before tapping on it. My vision blurred as I saw the image. It was me, right now, standing in front of the door, and behind me, something crawled out from the shadows. My body moved before my brain could process. I spun around expecting, praying. It was just a trick of the light, but I wasn't alone anymore. In the darkness of my apartment, a figure stood in the farthest corner, bent, twisted, too long, too thin. Its head twitched unnaturally, and as it slowly lifted its face to meet mine, I realized it was Maya, or at least something that wore her skin. Her mouth opened wider than any human should be able to, and she smiled. The lights flickered, and then everything went black. Darkness swallowed me whole. I don't remember how long I stood there, frozen in place, my heartbeat pounding in my ears like a war drum. The air around me was thick, suffocating, like something unseen was pressing down on my chest. Then from the abyss came a sound, a whisper. "I told you never to leave me alone." Maya's voice. But this time, it wasn't coming from the corner of the room. It was coming from inside my own head. My body refused to move. My limbs felt like they weren't mine anymore, as if something else was inside me, pulling the strings. My breath came in ragged gasps as the darkness around me began to shift, to pulse, to breathe. Then the lights flickered back on, and she was standing right in front of me. Not Maya, not anymore. Her skin was too pale. Her eyes, pure black voids, stared into me, seeing something I couldn't comprehend. Her mouth twisted into an unnatural, jagged grin, revealing teeth that were far too sharp. I tried to scream, but before I could, she lunged. When I woke up, everything was silent. I was lying in my bed, drenched in sweat, my body trembling. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting soft golden rays across the room. Had it all been a nightmare? I sat up, my head pounding. My phone was on the nightstand. I reached for it, my hands still shaking, and checked the time. 7:45 a.m. A message notification popped up. "Maya, good morning, love. Did you sleep well?" I stared at the screen, my blood running ice cold. Number no, that wasn't possible. Maya was gone. I hadn't seen her in days. I never responded to her last message. With a trembling finger, I clicked on her profile. Last online. Just now. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. And then a knock on my door. Slow, rhythmic, exactly like that night. My breath hitched in my throat. My entire body screamed at me to stay still, to ignore it, to pretend I wasn't home. But then, a second knock, a third, and then a voice, Maya's voice. "Love, I know you're in there." I felt lightheaded, my vision swimming. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. I forced myself to my feet, my body weak, my mind racing. I moved toward the peephole, slow, cautious. My hands trembled as I pressed my eye against it. There was no one there, just an empty hallway. But then, a whisper right in my ear. "Found you." The world spun. The air grew unbearably cold. And before I could turn around, the lights went out again. The nightmare never ends. I woke up in my bed. Again, the same sunlight, the same silence. My phone buzzing on the nightstand. A message from Maya. "Good morning, love. Did you sleep well?" I let out a shaky breath, my entire body drenched in cold sweat. Number no, this isn't possible. This isn't real. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. 7:45 a.m. The same time as before. The same exact message. A sinking dread settled in my gut. I turned my head, slowly, towards the door. A knock echoed through the room. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. And then from behind me, a whisper. "You'll never leave me again."